Hi, this is Zena Harris.
And I'm Mark Rabin.
Welcome to the tie-in.
Hey, everybody. Today we're speaking with Dr. Ryan Wartena, a true force in entertainment and off grid renewable energy. And he's been instrumental in bringing solar energy to Burning Man, that wild little event in the Nevada desert. He's also been an innovator in the energy space for many years, including his new project, Southern Beams, which he's making this incredible 20-foot shipping container that has a 22 kilowatt retractable solar array, and it's got an all-in-one deployable energy system.
Dragon
So
wings
it's
is
called
what it
Dragon Wings.
is. Love it.
I
Love it.
know.
It's so
So
cool.
yeah, it's exciting to speak with him, and we felt that he'd be a great addition here to our discussion around event production and film and sustainability.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking to him and learning his perspective on all of this. I'm sure he's got an interesting take.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
especially from Burning Man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we've got a lot to learn here today.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Hi, Ryan. Welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to talk to you today.
Great. Hi, Zena. Hi, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
Hello, hello. Great. So, Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, I would like just to start it off with tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, what inspires you, and what you've been up to for the last couple of decades.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And thanks, Zena. I'm Dr. Ryan Wartena. I have a PhD in electrochemical engineering, and I did a couple of postdocs. So I have a number of patents around batteries and solid-state batteries. Had an earlier, my research career was computational chemistry, and I grew up in a high precision machine shop. And we prototyped and manufactured the first couple 100,000 satellite dish feed horns in the early 1980s. And as I was working in the machine shop, one of my jobs was to empty the cutting oil out of the machines. And I was instructed to dump that in the creek. And so I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I remember dumping this white emulsion oil stuff into a creek in the beautiful Sierra Nevadas of the Gold Country in California. And in my mind's eye, I remember seeing that white milky substance flow down the creek, and then it came back up. It flowed, back up into the bucket, and I turned and I saw all of us working together over our lifetimes to bring this planet back to a natural state, but maintain all the technology and know-how. And so I feel like my gem was revealed in that early stage. So I knew what we are all supposed to do and what I wanted to do, which was to become environmental engineer, which is really a chemical engineer. And really a big answer is electrochemistry. So yeah, that's why I went on to get my PhD in that and really spent the past couple of decades bringing batteries from R&D, lithium ion out onto the grid. And I started a company called Jelly that I sold to Hanwha Q Cells a couple of years ago. It's a leading software platform for design and controls of residential, commercial, and utility scale batteries. Now used globally for virtual power plants and EV charging and the like. So that's my brief introduction to kind of how I started getting here. And then I went on to do a lot more interesting things.
So we first met through Burning Man, um, and you had been instrumental in bringing solar and storage to the playa. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how that went about.
Yeah. Um, 2005, a group of us, Chris Wagner and Sage, and about 60 people, that got together to do a large scale Burning Man art project. It was the first time a Boston group got an art grant to do that. And we built an 80-foot diameter seed of life called the Seed of Life activation, about 350 some odd pods, 5,000 LEDs. Super cool. When you stand at the intersections of the circles, they do different light shows. Um, but we were going to have to run it on a gas generator, which we ultimately did. We did use ethanol in that generator. It was a 2 kilowatt generator. But it really dawned on me at that point. I'm like, why do we build this beautiful art if we run it with like dirty, ugly sources? Like, why can't the whole thing be beautiful? And so that really inspired, kind of how to pair batteries and solar together. And something I would like to touch on later is, this intentional design of energy systems for applications. So that's what really got me going. And then when I met you, Mark, I had joined the board of BlackRock Solar and turned that into BlackRock Labs, kind of a innovation platform for Burning Man, because this innovation is also very creative to find the solutions that we're going to need to run a sustainable city, a sustainable world. It's going to be, part art, part science, part business. Um, and so I did take over for Will Power, who passed away. He was doing Snow Cone Solar's 20 kilowatt solar array that was for basically 300 people, no RVs, bunch of refrigerators. Because solar has been done for a while out at Burning Man and on the planet, but our job was to kind of take that to the next level and scale. So yeah, proud to be a board member of BlackRock Labs, helping Burning Man. I worked on the carbon inventory for them. Another point there is kind of really understanding how much carbon is used. And again, it's like how you treat, say, a movie production that might be in multiple locations is very different than how a city evaluates or a company evaluates carbon intensity. So yeah, that's where we started, Mark, and that's where my current company, Southern Beams, builds Dragon Wings solar generators. Is coming from, is actually seeing that it took 10 people 3 days just to go ahead and build that 20 kilowatt solar array, to kind of put up the racking and the panels, and wiring in the desert is something that one day hopefully we won't have to do. Um, and wanting to see like a very rapid deployable solar generator solution that can really meet three-phase power requirements, anywhere from 30 kilowatt to a megawatt. Like, that was a really missing piece in the industry or in the market. There was no three-phase power solar generator out there, and it took a number of technologies to kind of come together. But yeah, Mark introduced us to some of our initial investors. I advised early on with his company, Portable Electric, too, and really said, the Burning Man is a great place to test out these technologies and get and harden them. Might take a couple of years going back and forth, but that's definitely what you get.
Yeah, I love how you came at this, or at least, one of the areas that you came at this was being inspired by art. That's just, and how this can how technology can be beautiful. And I love that perspective. Um, does that influence like is there a big influence if people are looking at the technology that may not come from a technology background? Does it inspire the use in some way because it comes with a certain aesthetic?
Well, I think with energy specifically, I'd like to have discussions around energy awareness. Like, how much power does a thing use? How long do you use it for? And we've really been energetically blind, as a society. We look at the outlet on the wall and we have no idea where the electricity comes from or what the mix of energy is. And also, we on the sidewalk will walk by and a gray box, and we have no idea what that is. And so, when Chris Wagner and I formed Jelly, we built what we called energy computers, blue, turquoise, hexagonal energy storage systems. And so we wanted to be very different. We wanted to catch people's eye. We want people to think about it, but also not to be afraid of it, to be like, we want to welcome in. It seems like there's a barrier to, like, this allowance of people to know and understand about energy. But in multimedia artists and again, in production, so many areas, like the electricity is really critical to the whole rest of the production.
Hmm.
So, let's make it welcoming, let's make it edible. So yeah, I would sometimes consider myself, was called once an energy artist. And I like that. We want to make it all beautiful. And then, back to Dragon Wings too, is like when people see it, it's it's an accordion unfolding solar array of a 20-foot container that expands 10 times its initial width. Some people just think it's a shade structure.
Yeah.
Other people just love it. And I've got the compliment a number of times that we finally made solar look beautiful. I'm like, yes, thank you very much. And I think
I
that's what it
mean,
takes for some adoption. Yeah, people need to like it, not be afraid of it. It's not just another gray box. It's not just another piece of industrial infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. It's part of our lives. And I think just like electric vehicles do a lot of the same thing. Electric vehicles will have a lot of the same features of being able to provide power. And, that market also is very aesthetically pleasing, kind of bridging kind of consumer product to commercial ROI driven product. But I think, no, everything needs to be beautiful. Everything needs to be beautiful.
yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
You you've touched on a number of times already in our short time we've been talking around, and this is something that Zena and I talk a lot about around energy budgets, carbon accounting, and you were one of the first people that I'd come across as well to really hold to that and have the spreadsheet and make sure that everybody accounts for every watt that they need. All right, that's going to be the success
Hmm.
of the project or the
Yeah.
success of the of the power for however many days. And something that Zena and I do a lot in film too. But I was wondering if you could touch on your, when you first started coming across doing an energy budget, and then also how that's parlayed into carbon accounting, and where you're at with that sort of process
Hmm.
today, especially how it influenced Burning Man as well.
Sure. Yeah, it's really at the core of things because when you use generators now, there's no idea of how many kilowatt hours come off that thing, and also it's burning fuel when no kilowatt hours coming out too,
Yeah.
right? So you know whether you get like a 20 kilowatt or a 75 kilowatt or 250, you ask people, well, what's your actual load? And they don't know. Again, part of that energy blindness, and so we need to become energy aware. And that also means power aware. And one of the things I've really learned early on, I was a postdoc at MIT, and I remember thinking to myself about power and then also energy. And I realized I didn't know the difference. And I realized if I didn't actually really, physically know the difference, and a lot of people don't. So then I realized I'm like, oh, okay, we have to come up with a real, basic way here. I'm like, oh, so then I can actually remove all of the math and numbers, and we just ask two questions, just two questions. What do you want to do? How long do you want to do it? Say it with me. Number one is,
What do you want
What
to
do you
do?
want to
what
do?
do you want to do? Second is,
How do you want to do it?
How
how
long?
long do you want to do it?
I always
Right. So
say, what do you want to power and for how long? That's kind
right.
of
And
my
so it's the same thing. Like, what do you want? And then you're actually building in the word, right? And so of power. So what do you want to do is the power, is the kilowatt. How long you want to do it is that power for a duration of time,
Mhm.
is the kilowatt hour, right? And so kilowatt hour of energy. So I just got into, I would always say kilowatt of power and kilowatt hour of energy to kind of just drill it. And then I realized too, I'm like, oh, the light bulb, and you look at the top of it, what does it say? It says 100 W,
yeah.
right? Or 60 W, 60 watts of power, 100 watts of power. It doesn't say anything about energy. And so like now it's about how long you run that light bulb for is to that energy point. It's like if we're running for 100 watts of power for an hour, that's 100 watt hours. You do it for 2 hours, that's 200 watt hours of energy. And when I started introducing batteries into commercial applications more than just backup, we actually did a lot of this battery sizing for different applications. And you really had to understand and because how much energy storage, much energy you again, we live in a, up to this point, we've lived in a real time power world. You turn on the hair dryer, a coal plant ramps up somewhere. There's no energy storage on the grid. Blew my mind. Every single industry, from banks to agriculture, have silos. Like they all have, computers have, data storage. Like that storage is critical to the rest of the function of the technology or the business. But we've lived in a centralized power system that just didn't do that. And I'm like, oh, now if we actually really want batteries out there, we have to get really analytical around this and do this type of energy budgeting and energy sizing. And this is also, we started Jelly in like 2008, which was just the same time that smart meters were coming around. Before that, no one had smart meters. You had one data point a month, and the utility told you how much kilowatt hours you used, and maybe for a commercial entity, what your peak was on power. And like that just wasn't enough. Again, that was part of this energy blindness. But I think for an artist or production team, to really kind of fill out the rest of the program, to know exactly how much power for how long is. If you can answer those two questions, then the solar and battery system designs itself. If you know where you're at on the planet, right? Because like, so you got 5 hours of solar in the summertime, maybe 3.5 or 4 in the winter time, and you can go ahead and back out the size of solar panel and the size of battery. And so, I think that was really critical. Was that this energy awareness, this process that we just went through together. After selling Jelly and kind of realizing, back in 2008, it was blasphemy to say that the world was going to run on 100% renewable energy. It was like, the utilities are going to be after you. I'm like, no, they're actually going to, they're going to welcome this because they're going to get more utilization of their power lines if done right. But now, it's slightly possible. There's a handful of people, or a portion of the population can actually see that we're going to actually get there to 100% or 500% renewable power world in our lifetime. And I was quite, happy with that general shift and the fact that solar and battery together have dropped in price enough to be competitive or lower costs than grid costs, and definitely for gas and generator costs. And so that was just absolutely remarkable. But then I took a step back and looked at our carbon emissions. And I did work with Burning Man on doing the carbon emission inventory. 90% of the emissions come from traveling, 10% are just done on playa. The burning the art is equivalent to how much CO2 is made by people breathing for that time, exhaling, to put in numbers. And actually, the full 54,000 metric tons of that, all that carbon emissions of Burning Man, we did analysis on like what Burning Man weighs as a city, like if we had to lift it one day, and it's also 54,000 metric tons. And that's kind of interesting. So like we put up as much. You just look around everywhere, and like that's the amount of emissions that we put up, and that kind of scales to cities too, which is kind of nuts to think like all these buildings and everything around us we put up in the air every year, in our own weight. And so, I'm an industrial electrochemical engineer. My PhD was on applying industrial electrochemistry to industrial thermal processes, chemical processes. Like really, everything's been up to date. It's been done with heat and chemistry to make steel and glass and recycle paper pulping materials. And that was my 2001 PhD. And we came up with a process that, use 50% less energy, use electricity, electrochemistry to recycle paper pulping chemicals, one of the top 10 energy consuming processes on the planet. But we didn't have 24/7 renewable power plants. So I paused on the general electrochemistry, electrochemical, converting thermal chemistry to electrochemistry, and focused on getting batteries and solar to make renewable power plants. And now we have that. And so now I also advise a company called Air Capture. They make a modular air capture CO2 from air unit. And then so I'm in there to help them on the, pairing it to power it with renewable energy, because we don't want to power all the air capture with dirty fuels, but then also to do something with that CO2 afterwards. And so we have a DOE grant to turn CO2 into methanol, kind of the base for all carbon fibers and plastics. And so I'm the principal investigator on that program also to go. And so that's really cool because for dragon wings, we have a pathway one day to go ahead and make all dragon wings all out of carbon fiber, right? And I advise a all electric. And so they are lightweight. They're a couple of spacecraft engineers, transit vehicle. Again, we can make this stuff out of the air. And so this is kind of where I'm going to parlay a quick story here. I had a insight, and it was the world is both created and destroyed by dragons. So dragons both destroy worlds and dragons create worlds. And we've been living with a dragon that destroys worlds. And that's all we've known for the past couple hundred years, at least. And so we burn stuff and we make stuff and we make our stuff around, but we still have all these emissions. And now part of what Dragon Wings is the wings of a full electro plant, a combination of a direct air capture system, all modular made so we can make it fast like vehicles, paired with a solar generator, paired with water electrolysis type fuel cell, chemical conversion of CO2 to methanol to 3D printer, all like on single skids. So a new type of factory too. So this is my ultimate vision that I'm kind of working towards right now, is to get all of these technologies moving along and deployed and financed and building bumpers and other parts of cars and homes and things like that. So that's the dragon which creates worlds, and that's where we're going. It's a very different type of infrastructure and change. But to get there, we are doing a number of things. I'm going to kind of parlay now over into dragon specifically. We are going after customers and clients that need temporary power and want it renewably and want some shade with it too. And
Can you
also like,
describe can you
yeah,
describe dragon wings for the listeners? Just
yeah,
what it looks like, and then and then back to that thought.
yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt there.
Imagine a 20-foot shipping container. They're all over the world. Yeah, they're ubiquitous. They're all over. We have from the ground up designed a solar generator in the shape initially of a 20-foot container. So that's 8 feet wide, 8.5 feet tall, 20 feet long. That's a TEU, what they call it. But we go ahead and with some special solar panels and some special batteries, electric vehicle batteries, we can go ahead and open the sides of that container, and it unfolds an accordion 84 feet. So from the 8 feet, it expands to 84 feet out. And so 1,600 square feet of shade. And it's a 22.5 kilowatt solar array. It replaces a 30 kilowatt or 30 kV generator. We can put a lot more power conversion and a lot more battery in that unit also. So we can get up to 75 and 125, up to 180 kilowatt, power service. Still only make, 100 or so kilowatt hours a day because the solar is fixed. But we can pair 6 of those at the 180 kilowatt level and have a megawatt system on 6 containers. I can basically go on the back of 3 semi trucks because we could put 2 of them on per 53-foot or 40-foot trailer and make sure that the weight doesn't go over what's allowed to go on the roads.
And
Um,
you,
so yeah,
well, and you mentioned earlier that Burning Man was a great place to test, as a good testing ground for um,
mm.
technology. If you can kind of make it there, like that's it. It can go lots of different places. How has Dragon Wings been tested there? Like, what's that look like?
So the conditions are really harsh. Even this year, it was like you know all the mud and flood to the year before, like super high winds. And, that was the big question that people had about Dragon Wings was like, what happens in the wind? Well, we've designed it for like 100-mile-an-hour plus type of things, but also we'll close the wings automatically once it reaches 20 miles an hour. And we tested up in like the 40-mile-an-hour plus out there. And that was actually a really big jump because it was all computational and in design space before we actually built it. So we had to take that big jump to build and, really answer everyone's main question of like, what happens in the wind? Well, it closes and it does just fine. And so, and also the dust out there too. It was kind of nice because as the wings close, it can knock the dust off of the panels too, since they're not laying flat. They kind of fold like upright. And so that was really wonderful. We also powered the foamy home kitchen, and that kitchen fed 400 people. It did have gas. Some gas stoves in it, but each of those gas stoves had like a kilowatt fan on it and a bunch of refrigerators and a bunch of coffee makers. And we kept that system up and going, day and night the whole time. And then we powered up the Tea Tigers tea house. And they were making lots of tea all the time, lots of hot water, lots of lights, lots of air conditioners. So, it was a really good test and demonstration also of the functionality. And then kind of circling back, one of the things we did with the Foamy Homies was, they asked if we would come and do what we kind of did with Snow Cone Solar, was to help them run on all renewables, but they had lots of RVs.
Hmm.
So I said, hey, meet me halfway. Instead of a big 30, 50 amp plug, you get an orange extension cord for RVs. Do a real energy analysis. Let's look at everything that uses energy or power in the camp. Let's make a list of it and how often you use it, right? And then so we were able to go ahead and it's like, wow, we've brought that camp down from a 400 kilowatt load to, you know, 20 to 60 kilowatt load. Amazing.
Yeah.
Like a
Amazing.
smart
And
panel.
that's like, oh yeah, well, eventually we'll get there, and Dragon Wings has the capability to do that. We'll be bringing a number of Dragon Wings out this year to go ahead and power the whole camp, and we'll work in collaboration with Sunbelt. We hope that all goes through, and so I think it's gonna be a really interesting, further demonstration that we could take a very large and significant camp off, and again, doing the 100 Dragon Wings, we power the whole city.
Yeah.
Awesome. And
How
so
have you
that
seen the
that leads,
mindset?
yeah.
How have you seen the mindset change around sustainability and around green energy and solar energy over the years? Because that's always one of the challenges that we see in all types of production. It like, nope,
Well,
not going to work, and then
yep,
that's the first question. That's the first reaction.
right. I've been, Mark, it's similar to you. I've been building microgrids now for like 2 decades.
Yeah.
Done with all sorts of government and military and commercial municipal entities, and then none of them want to get rid of their generator. It's like, fine, leave it there. And then you stand there with them while it works, being the solar battery. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe we don't have to have the generator. And so I do think of it as the magic trick, right? And that's why I think it's so important for media and production, TV and film, to show this, to show their own transition, show their doubters, but then also kind of show that evolution. Because like once people see it working and do it, like they get it. You show them the magic trick. It's no longer like the again that blindness of energy that we're getting from the outlet. No, you kind of see the solar panels working, you see the battery going down, and yeah, I think I think that's part of that transition. People have to kind of live that magic trick and live through that. Maybe they can't put solar on their house, but maybe they will go out of the camp and have it. And I would like to point out that everyone is already at energy awareness level 1. Here's my question to you. How many times a day do people touch their face?
Do people
On
touch their
average,
face?
face. How many times a day?
Uh,
On average, it is 1,000.
A
okay, I was gonna say
thousand. I was
I was
going to
gonna
say
say
a
A
200.
hundred.
thousand times. Yeah, it's 1,000. Start counting. You'll knock yourself out. And again, I had to deal with acne as a kid, so I was also like trying not to touch my face. How many times a day do you look at the battery level on your phone?
Oh,
Right?
I
At
would.
least like
Yeah.
50.
A lot,
A
right?
lot, I would say.
Maybe not as much as you touch your face, but like that's what I'm saying. Like we're already energy aware, right? We did not have that before we had cell phones and laptops. We had it a little bit with our car and knowing like where our gas tank was, so we weren't that was initial energy awareness. But that's all part of it now too. So now when you're on production, you're going to be watching the levels of your batteries. It's no
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
but that might be going up because you have solar going into it,
Yeah.
right? And so like this is welcoming. This is something you already do. And it's not something to be afraid of. If you were like, I wouldn't have my cell phone in my back pocket near my buttocks.
Totally. And
So
yeah, when I'm talking to people about batteries, it's more on the, well, you know, you already use batteries all the time when you're charging your cell phone. Like all you have
yeah,
to do is plug the thing in overnight, just like you would, with your phone, and then you've got it for the next day. Like
yeah,
this is an act you're already doing. It's just apply it to a different piece of technology, just a new tool. And
yeah,
that kind of tends to, you know, relax people, open up the
yeah.
conversation a little bit.
Yeah, I
So,
have a solar panel that I keep in the front window that gets morning sun. And it's like a 30-watt solar panel. It has a couple little batteries on it. I charge my phone with it. And my wife
that's,
does sometimes too.
yeah,
And it's just like taking one thing off the grid,
Yeah.
right? It's just one little thing. And actually those, I have two of those batteries and they kind of float around the house and charge other things,
yeah, yeah,
you know? And
that's,
so like that's little ways and you're like, oh no, this can work actually. Winter, summer, even cloudy days,
yeah,
you know? So no, it's definitely possible. I think that's why again we'll get to a 500% renewable world. It's going very fast. All automakers are shifting over to electric vehicles. Solar battery is getting to a low cost, lower than other methods of generating energy without like all the health effects from the pollution. We do have to actively pull CO2 out of the air to also kind of prevent us from warming. And since 90% of people live on the coast, we don't have to move a bunch of cities, which is kind of what we're doing in that practice at Burning Man. It's like how to move an 80,000 person
Yeah.
city
You,
yeah,
too. But
you mentioned
yeah.
EVs, and you were alluding earlier to Dragon Wings, being part of the sort of off-grid EV charging infrastructure.
mhm,
Can you touch on that? And also, you mentioned 90% of emissions are from transportation to and from Burning Man.
mhm.
How do you envision people charging their EVs if they do get to Burning Man as well?
Yeah, that's a big question. So part of what we did
Yeah, just
for
sorry, multiple parts.
Dragon Wings, to make a mobile system, and really this, like designing and deploying microgrids can be very intensive from an engineering and time point of view. And so I was like, oh, why don't we just like integrate everything in together? And so it can be mobile, but it can also be fully manufactured in a production line factory. But then also like now those batteries need to be able to move around. And now 90% of batteries on the planet are electric vehicle batteries. And so price point for batteries, you might as well use electric vehicle batteries even for stationary applications. If you're kind of building something that needs the size of a electric vehicle battery or more. And so we utilize electric vehicle batteries. They have integrated cooling with them. They're made for vibration, applications. So that's great. And then so Dragon Wings is a vehicle to grid asset, just like a car could be too, but it can also generate its own power too. Awesome. Super needed. Now, that 90% of emissions for Black Rock City coming from getting there, again, like the working group that we had to do this carbon inventory, we called the team Travel Naked because we want people to come from very far. We don't want to penalize people from coming from far away, but we also just want them to come naked. Don't bring a lot of stuff if you're coming from far. And figuring out that trick is a really, one that where innovation needs to be. But because literally everyone brings a ton of stuff. And so that's why the emissions are so high on the travel for Black Rock City specifically. And now people or electric vehicles come in, and a lot of people don't take their electric vehicles to Burning Man because they don't know how to get them charged to get them back out too. Well, yeah, having a lot of extra solar and being able to use those as extra battery banks, I think is going to be a real interesting way of life out there on how the electric vehicle does participate in our home, but also say in our camp and powering art projects, powering production too. Because having a Dragon Wings plus electric truck or two, awesome, awesome combo here because you can charge the trucks every day, just like what every day, and then you could drive those trucks around and you could power other stuff from those trucks wherever, and you come back to main base station and charge them up again, and so it's a full closed loop system. So yeah, I mean the answer is it's going to be hard, or otherwise people are going to be charging on gas generators,
Hmm.
which is just going to be like that's no good. So yeah, I think that's part of the magic combo.
We're seeing that in film. It's kind of a joke, right? Where the producers, right? We had one of our guests. The producers are charging their Teslas off the diesel generator.
Yeah, yeah. I mean it's
Yeah.
hard to get around it, because if you don't have enough and you need what's the other option? You go charge at the
Pedal
grid
power.
that might, yeah, bicycles, but people, to really induce change, it has to be cheaper, better, faster, right? We can't go backwards on functionality, which is why, again, we came up with Dragon Wing. So I'm like, we really need a 30 kilowatt to megawatt mobile or just fast deployable, stationary system.
Yeah.
So
I'd add in convenient into that. Cheaper, better, faster, and convenient, because
yeah,
that's where mobile power really starts to, I don't know, just make a difference. I'd pay a little bit more if I knew that thing was right there and I could use it. Um, I think in film and TV, especially, like that's one of the main concerns that we hear from people is, I've got my truck over here. How am I going to charge it? I can't drive all the way back to the lot or, cross town or whatever the case is. And so we need mobile power, and that's what everybody wants. So
yeah, the biggest business in the world is the power business. The
yeah.
second biggest is the war business, so that's just there to protect the power business.
Hmm.
And the internet, I think, or communications is like third. But the power business is huge, and Mark and I have discussed this quite a bit. Once we start doing mobile batteries, mobile, solar generators, all of a sudden, infrastructure, power plants are not tied to land and can be invested in. So part of what we do is we both sell Dragon Wings, we also rent Dragon Wings generators, but then we also have people buy Dragon Wings and put them into our rental share program,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and we give them lion's share of the rental,
Yeah.
right? And so now you can actually you might pay a little bit more for it. You may also own a Dragon Wings or a portion of it, and like this is a whole new way of investing and owning infrastructure too. And I think this is part of what happens as we kind of go into the future. Like it's part of also with the electric vehicle. It hasn't totally come to fruition yet, but when that vehicle can also provide, say, grid services back to the grid, or you can charge a car with another car, and someone Venmos you $15 for doing that.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
kind of, shifting business models, creating new business models.
it
Um,
it goes hand in hand. It has to go. You can't just have a technological innovation. It has to kind of come along with a business model innovation too, to really kind of shake things up and get out there.
I don't know, Ryan, if you're able to speak to it, but you had Dragon Wings at the Super Bowl this year. Again, one of the challenges we hear about productions, especially live event, right,
Mhm.
is when the production starts going, it's like don't mess with it, right? It just
Oh
has
yeah,
power has to be on, and there's a backup generator for a backup generator to a backup generator. You're starting to get into live event production as well, aside from Burning Man.
yeah,
Yeah, can you speak to some of those conversations and early learnings?
yeah. We had the privilege and honor to support and do a pilot with Sunbelt Rentals out at that big uh, football event that happened in Las Vegas, and that was awesome. You know, we we powered construction of a big stage. We charged a bunch of electric carts. We powered security stations. We charged trucks, provided some lighting, provided some cool space, and actually, got a lot of people to see it, got to get their hands on it. Some other, heads of, sports media too saw it. My favorite statement was from one of the leads at Sunbelt. He walks up, he's like, "I don't hate it," because we kind of
Oh,
dug into it. Is like a lot of the solar solutions are kind of like, as I say, like, you know, poles and sticks in the back of a pickup truck. They come and someone has to set this up. I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, that happened for years at Burning Man. This is not that. This is no wiring in the field. It comes ready to go, right? And it's lifted up off the ground. That lower container, that Dragon Wing sits on another 20-foot shipping container, or it can stay on the back of a flatbed truck. But it elevates up and opens out, so it doesn't take up a bunch of footprint,
hmm.
which is kind of really critical in event space and wherever you're at. Really, it becomes a solar carport that takes up one parking spot and covers another eight. Awesome.
Hmm.
And the teams worked in and around Dragon Wings and put other gear underneath the wings. It was great. Kept all that shaded too. It was in January, February timeframe, right? Winter, so that's a hard time. Yeah, let's go ahead and use solar. It was raining and cloudy, still worked great. Why? Because we did the energy analysis ahead of time.
Exactly. The energy budget.
You did the energy budget. If you know where you're at on the planet, you can go ahead and model that. It models perfectly as a 22.5 kilowatt flat array. You know how much you're going to make. There's enough historical data. You can look at that data and be like, okay, here's my range. Great. And it's interesting. Like those mobile kind of office trailers they all want 100 amp services. They don't need 100 amp services. Sometimes they do for startup power, and the kind of anything that rotates takes a lot of inrush current, but not the whole time. And then a little bit of energy management, and just kind of setting the thermostat right, is does wonders. So yeah, that the thing that went really well. And I think the industry overall is kind of like they're just now kind of at the point of hybridizing with mobile batteries, kind of Mark, what you're familiar with, and others, and getting electric vehicles in. And I think that's doing like wonderful things. But the next step is full solar battery solutions. We might as well just jump there. I'm like, I have no time to waste on this program. So that's where we went, and so we are kind of leading the pack in the space. We also were honored to do a pilot with one of the world's largest utility scale power plant builder operators. That was done in March,
For
and
construction, again, on the construction
for
side.
construction, for supporting construction of utility scale solar too, and that went really well. And so we were super happy about that. And again, it's like it's not just a generation asset. It's a beautiful thing, and people kind of like it and hang out, and it provides some shade and a number of other features and functions too. So yeah, that's been our experience. We have we're working towards I'm actually in Chattanooga, Tennessee right now. We're standing up our production plant for Dragon Wings, and building our first fleet that will be available for rentals, in coming in September too. And so we're lining up our main, customers that we're going after or would like to get some work with is solar construction and solar developers, and the second is film and media.
Yeah.
I do think it's like, again, this is where the magic trick is taught, is through film and media, and those spokespeople for it. So those are our first two. That's also where we financially pencil. After we build about 100, even now we pencil at 57 a kilowatt hour on a 10-year program and that's like EV charging costs. And after we build like the next 100 or so, then we're going to be unstoppable for deploying in the commercial sector because we could be, you know, lower than other methods of deploying solar for stationary applications, such as carports and microgrids.
Um, I've one last question, and then we'll do the roundup. Um, what other innovations and technologies are you seeing that are exciting you right now, other than Dragon Wings, that are out there? Yeah, because you've got your finger on the pulse, and also Burning Man is a very innovative place too. But are you seeing anything exciting coming out in terms of all types of innovations in the to power entertainment?
Oh, well, I mentioned one before, which is I think it's critical for us to pull CO2 out of the air, like the latency and the amount of that. That's something that gets me very excited. All the kind of electrochemical conversion that's happening, we're seeing it happening in cement and alternate ways of making hydrogen. So electrochemistry is coming in, not necessarily pertaining to, film and media directly. Um, let's see, Mark, I wasn't prepared for that question. I had all the other questions prepared for
Well,
here.
you know what? We kind of put people on the
Yeah,
spot a little bit with these because it's
yeah,
it's interesting what people see every day, and we're not, um, it's just so interesting. And it could be anything from just, for example, there's no one uses paper on film productions anymore, right? Things as simple as that.
yeah,
But no, this is great. That's so. Last question, I think
yep,
here. So, if you were to create a new playbook, right, like a guiding principles about sustainability and entertainment, what would be first on your list, or what would be a top few on your list?
yeah. I think it is know your data. Know your power, know your energy, get that. But then also know your CO2 emissions, get that. Know the amount of waste, also the amount of the production weight itself, all of those things. Also know the distances that you're traveling and the methods by which you're traveling too. I think getting to know your data, you can't control what you don't measure. And I think that is prolific, across. And yes, it is a couple of extra cycles, but when done right, you now are armed with the information to go ahead and right size all your other solutions, whether it be solar generators or batteries or electric vehicles, or just, moving to vegetarian meals and getting rid of all plastic. That's another one of, okay, here's the one you market.
Yeah.
Mushrooms. Mushroom plastic, chitin. Come on. I want to see the day soon where I don't physically touch any plastic.
Yeah.
Like I think plastics and carbon fibers great for like car frames and house frames, but nothing that humans touch. That should all be plant-based.
Yeah.
I want my clothes plant-based. I want all of that. And we've talked with Patagonia about this because like, it takes a lot of water to grow cotton and wool. And it's just fast to do plastic,
Yeah.
right? So, I think that's a major one. I would love to see a film production that's all organic, all the way down to the materials that everyone touched and wore too. And so, yeah, what really gets me mad or drives me batty is foods wrapped in plastic.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like, I don't think anything's trash. Everything is recycle in my mind, but I know Mylars are kind of hard. So let's solve that, but let's maybe wrap them in mushroom chitin plastic. Like, mushroom packaging could potentially solve a lot of this. So, yeah, that would love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Well, maybe we'll get to talk to a material scientist about all of this stuff at some point as well. And I don't think
Yeah,
we're that far away from a film production that could actually like
yeah.
say that they had all organic or all, plant-based materials. I mean, I think we could get there pretty quickly. It's not too far off.
Is film cellulose? Is that plant or
Oh,
plastic?
like we don't use a ton of film in film anymore. It's like
We
I don't
don't.
know why.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know why we say that. It's all digital.
Yeah, it's true. I know. Every once in a
So
while.
yeah, every once in a
Awesome.
while.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Any closing thoughts as we'll wrap this up?
Yeah, I do. I got one. I like one of your questions here, and I'm just gonna I'll pitch it here really quick. I am the doctor, so that's my character.
Oh yes.
I am the doctor, and I've been working on. I live it, I build it, and I've also been working on a science fiction, science real book. I would love to be a film series of films one day. And the working title is "Growing an Internet of Energy," or "Adventures of the Growing Architecture Collective." And the story is that we must demonstrate 100 or 500% renewable operations on this planet, just like Bunkmaster Fuller envisioned too. It would get rid of wars. It would mean that we don't go after other people for oil, right? And we take care of our own resources and needs locally. But I believe that this is one of the requirements for us to kind of graduate in the galactic and universal federation. So for us to get there together. And so this is the very first human race. And all of these stories are part of the stories of how we make this great global transition, which I think can happen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will. And so it's like, well, I want to make a movie about it, and right? But we're also just doing it, and that's actually what really needs to happen right now. We can do the movie in post,
Yeah.
but
The action needs to happen right now.
Yeah.
We're
it
living
really
it.
is. We're living it, and the implications are huge and more than we can even imagine. Because like if I were from another planet, I'm not sure if I would really want to come here because it's such a people warring with each other and not being nice to each other. And so like I think that
Hoarding,
kindness too, yeah,
hoarding resources.
hoarding, all of that, like we have to like think this is part of what we learn through this process. So yeah, those are
Awesome.
my closing words.
Awesome. Well, you never know. Some producer may be listening to this right now and may get in
Oh,
touch with you.
I've been doing art projects in and around all of this for a long time, and I would love to explore that.
Yeah. Very cool.
Thank you,
Very
Mark. Thank
cool.
you, Zena. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ryan.
Oh,
So
you're
cool.
welcome.
So cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for what you're doing too, and I love seeing you two out there and kind of pushing the message. I think it's from Albert and beyond right now, Mark. Like I think it's really taking hold, and what you're doing is so important. So yeah, this is a milestone.
Blow my mind. That guy was amazing.
Wow. Yeah, he's definitely one of the smartest guys out there doing this, and he's actually very very um, I don't know, he's really putting his money where his mouth is, so to speak, and he's been doing it for so long, and he's inspired a whole generation of innovators at Burning Man. You can, as you heard through his work, and it's been really beautiful to see his progression, which led him to Dragon Wings and the work that he's doing there, and he's really unlocked one of the challenges, right? Which is no wires. Set this thing up, deploy your solar, start charging your batteries. So I think that's really exciting for the industry as a whole, whether it's construction or whether it's live event production or film.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Such a testing ground, such like, oh my gosh, like amazing background and like, I mean, thinking through the the energy budget. Of course, yes, we should be doing that. I
Yeah.
mean, so or should I say power budget? Gosh.
Well, I mean, it depends. It's a power and energy budget.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, if he didn't think about it till grad school, like I don't feel too bad right now.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
all right, cool. Well, that was amazing. I hope it's inspiring for a lot of people and, just showing like what's out there, cool tech, what people are
Hmm.
thinking of. I mean, there's just
Yeah. And know your data.
know your data.
Know your
Oh
data.
my gosh, of
Yeah.
course. All right, cool. Let's wrap it out here. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey, listeners. If you have a story about innovation and sustainability in entertainment, please get in touch with us at tieinpodcast@gmail.com. That's TIEIN podcast, all one word, @gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We may ask you to be a guest on the show.
If you like today's conversation and want to hear more, please like us and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Our designer is Aaliyah Kane. Music is by Peter Chapman. Our producer is Colin Miller.